The official record states that the shrine world of sanctified hope was saved by a catastrophic failure in the enemy's siege equipment, a convenient miracle. The truth, buried in inquisitorial archives Septimus Black, is that it was saved by the last being in the galaxy who should have protected it, the very Iron Warrior sent to destroy it. Warsmith Krellax had been killing for 10,000 years. Not metaphorically, not approximately. 10,307 years since he'd turned his bolter on his own sergeants during the Siege of Terra. 10 millennia of grinding warfare, of watching ceramic rust and brothers decay into madness, of building fortresses only to tear them down again in the endless, spiteful campaign against the corpse emperor's domain. He remembered Olympia before the burning. He remembered building bridges that would last forever, calculating stress loads that would keep cities standing for millennia. He'd been an architect once. Now he was a demolition expert with a soul mortgage he could never repay. The Iron Warriors didn't worship the Chaos Gods like other legions. They used them like tools, accepting mutations and demon engines as necessary equipment for the long war. Krellax himself bore few marks of corruption. His left arm had been replaced with a mechanical siege claw. His hearts augmented with demon tech that would keep him fighting even when logic said he should die. But his mind, the calculating engine that had once designed wonders, remained coldly rational. That rationality told him the truth. They weren't winning. They weren't even truly fighting anymore. They were just continuing. Momentum without purpose. Hatred without heat.
The target was meaningless in the grand scheme. Shrine world, sanctified hope. Population 4 million. Strategic value negligible. But it had one distinction. It was defended by a small garrison of Imperial Fists successors, the Gilded Wardens. For Lord Commander Varkas, that was enough. The chance to humiliate the Sons of Dorn, to prove Iron Warrior's superiority in siegecraft once more, was worth any expenditure of resources. He assigned the task to Krellax Grand Company. 800 Iron Warriors, 3 daemon engines, enough artillery to crack a continent. "Make them suffer," Varkas had commanded. "I want every stone of their cathedral turned to powder. I want their relics melted into slag. I want the Fist's descendants to know that even 10,000 years cannot protect them from our grudge." Krellax had accepted the assignment without emotion. Another siege, another world, another link in the endless chain of spite. The initial bombardment was textbook Iron Warrior's doctrine, mathematical precision applied to maximum destruction. The orbital defense platforms fell in sequence, their destruction timed to create a cascade of debris that would shield the landing forces. The surface-to-orbit weapons were neutralized with surgical strikes. Within 6 hours, sanctified hope was defenseless against landing. But when Krellax made planetfall and began his reconnaissance, something he hadn't calculated for occurred. He heard singing. The singing came from the primary cathedral, a Gothic monument that reached 3 kilometers into the sky. Not hymns of battle, not prayers for deliverance, but children. A choir of children, their voices carrying across the burning city with impossible clarity. Krellax's lieutenant, Forge Brother Hess, spat acid. They mock us with their weakness. But Krellax heard something else in those voices. Something he hadn't heard in 10,000 years. Innocence, untouched by the knowledge of what was coming for it. He ordered a closer reconnaissance. Through his tactical display, he watched servo-skull feeds of the cathedral's interior. The gilded wardens had turned it into a shelter. 47 space marines holding a position that could have housed 1,000 because they were protecting something else. 30,000 civilians, mostly children from the planet's numerous orphanages and skolums. The tactical situation was clear. The cathedral was a trap. The gilded wardens were using the civilians as bait, hoping the Iron Warriors would commit to a frontal assault where the Imperial Fists' defensive doctrine would shine. Standard protocol was equally clear. Flatten the entire structure with artillery. The civilians were acceptable casualties, their deaths merely adding to the Imperium's tally of failure. But then Krellax saw something that stopped his hearts, both the original and the demon-touched one. A small girl, perhaps 7 years old, teaching other children to fold parchment into shapes. Origami Aquilas, crude but earnest. She had the same dark hair as Kyra, the same focused expression when concentrating on delicate work. Kyra, his daughter, dead 10,000 years, killed in the purges when Perturabo had ordered Olympia burnt. He'd pulled her body from the rubble of their hab block, her small hands still clutching the toy fortress he'd built for her. The memory hit him like a bolt around, not softened by time, but preserved in perfect, agonizing clarity by his hypno-indoctrination. Every Iron Warrior remembered their betrayals perfectly. It was part of their curse. Lord, Hess was waiting for orders. Krellax's voice was steady. Begin standard siege protocols, but I want a full tactical analysis first. Every weak point, every strength. This will be educational.
For 3 days, Krellax ran scenarios while his forces built their siege works. To his brothers, he appeared to be savoring the coming slaughter, calculating the perfect sequence of destruction. In reality, he was calculating something else entirely. How to lose. Not obviously, not in a way that would reveal treachery, but in a way that would give those children a chance. The solution came from the Gilded Wardens themselves. Their commander, Captain Titus Valorian, was competent but young. His defensive positions were textbook, which meant predictable. But buried in the cathedral's architectural plans, Krellax found something interesting. Maintenance tunnels, built before the cathedral, leading to the planet's old mining network. The Wardens hadn't found them. They weren't on any current schematic. But Krellax's 10,000-year-old memory included the original Mechanicum surveys. He could reveal those tunnels to the Iron Warriors. That night, Krellax did something that would have been unthinkable for any Iron Warrior. He entered the cathedral alone, not through the tunnels that would reveal them, through the front lines, using a teleportarium beacon he'd hidden from his own forces. Captain Valorian found him in the nave, standing before the altar, looking at a stained glass window depicting the Emperor triumphant. The gilded warden raised his bolter, but Krellax didn't move. "I am Warsmith Krellax of the 4th Legion, and I have come to offer you terms. We do not negotiate with traitors." "No," Krellax agreed, "but you'll listen to this one, because in 17 hours my forces will breach your walls. Your 47 brothers will die heroically but pointlessly, and then every civilian in this cathedral will be flayed alive, their suffering broadcast across the system to break Imperial morale. We will die standing. Yes, I've heard that song for 10,000 years." Krellax turned, and Valorian saw something impossible in the traitor's eyes. Regret. "But what if you didn't have to?" The negotiation was brief, because it wasn't really a negotiation. Krellax laid out his terms with the same precision he'd once used for load-bearing calculations. The maintenance tunnels beneath the cathedral lead to mining complexes 7 kilometers north. Your scouts missed them because they're not on maps younger than 10 millennia. You'll evacuate the civilians through them starting in 14 hours. Leave 300 volunteers to maintain the appearance of full occupation. Why would you? Because I've spent 10,000 years destroying beautiful things out of spite, and I'm tired. Krellax's siege claw clenched. Because your civilians include children who still believe the Emperor protects, and I remember when I believed in something too. Because my daughter would be their age if I hadn't failed to protect her. This is a trap. Yes, but not for you. Krellax produced a data slate. My assault will come from these vectors. I'll commit my forces here, here, and here. The demon engines will be held in reserve at these coordinates. Your devastators should position themselves accordingly. Valorian stared at the tactical data, a complete betrayal of the Iron Warriors' battle plan. They'll execute you for this. They'll execute me for failing. The distinction is academic. Krellax moved toward the shadows. 14 hours. Begin the evacuation. I'll ensure my forces don't detect it. Wait. Valorian lowered his bolter. Why should I trust you? Krellax paused at the threshold between light and darkness. Because, Captain, I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm telling you how to kill me. The only question is whether you'll save those children first. The assault began at dawn, precisely as Krellax had predicted. Iron warriors advancing in perfect formation,
siege mantlets protecting them from defensive fire, artillery walking their bombardment forward with mathematical precision. To any observer, it was a textbook Iron Warriors operation. But the details were wrong. The bombardment patterns left certain areas untouched, areas directly above the evacuation tunnels. The advancing forces moved slightly slower than optimal, giving the defenders time to reposition. The Daemon engines were committed piecemeal rather than as a concentrated force. Forge Brother Hess noticed first. "Lord, our casualties are higher than projected." "The Gilded Wardens are more competent than anticipated," Krellax replied, even as he watched another of his squads walk into a killing field he'd identified for the loyalists. Through his command feed, he tracked the evacuation. 20,000 civilians already clear, 10,000 more in the tunnels. The children from the choir among the last to leave, their teacher insisting they finish their morning prayers first. But Lord Commander Varkas was also watching. From orbit, he saw patterns that didn't align with expected doctrine. He saw Iron Warriors dying where they shouldn't, succeeding where they should have failed. He saw the mathematical precision of the Iron Warriors being turned against itself. His drop pod hit the battlefield like a meteor. "Krellax!" Varkas's roar cut through the vox. "Explain these casualty figures." "The Gilded Wardens are more competent than anticipated." "No." Varkas's chain fist was already revving. "I've watched 10,000 years of sieges. I know incompetence from treachery. You've betrayed the Legion." The duel was brief. Varkas was a Lord Commander, blessed by the Dark Gods with strength and fury. But Krellax had something more: purpose. For the first time in 10 millennia, he wasn't fighting out of spite or hatred. He was fighting to buy time. Every parry, every riposte, every step backward bought seconds. Seconds for children to run through darkness toward safety. Seconds for innocents to escape the grinding gears of war. Varkas's chain fist took his left arm at the elbow. Daemon-blessed machinery sparking as it died. His return strike opened Varkas's throat, but his enhanced physiology simply sealed the wound. "Why?" Varkas gurgled through blood. "Why betray your brothers for sheep?" Krellax, bleeding from 17 wounds, managed to stand straight. "Because I remembered something. We were builders once. We created wonders. We protected humanity. And somewhere in this cathedral, a little girl is folding paper aquillas, believing someone will save her. I couldn't save my daughter, but maybe I can save someone else's." Dying is different for a space marine. Their bodies fight death with engineered fury, every organ system with redundancies, every wound attempting to seal itself. For Krellax, with his demon-touched secondary heart, it was even slower. He had minutes. Minutes while Varkas rallied the Iron Warriors for a final furious assault. Minutes while the last 1,000 civilians ran through tunnels toward safety. Minutes to make one last calculation. The siege engines, 3 demon-possessed machines, their corrupted spirits bound to his command through 10,000 years of service. They would level the cathedral in moments once unleashed. But demon engines, for all their power, were still machines, and Krellax had been an engineer long before he'd become a butcher. With his remaining hand, he activated his command console, entering override codes that hadn't been used since the Great Crusade. Codes from before the corruption. Codes that Pertubaro himself had designed, then forgotten in his bitterness. Codes that turned friend or foe identification into something more fundamental. Pattern recognition. He inverted the parameters. Instead of targeting Imperial architecture, the engines would target anything bearing the mark of the Eye of Terror. Instead of destroying order, they would destroy chaos, his own forces. The first engine, Spite of Olympia, turned its massive siege cannon on the Iron Warriors' artillery position. The second, Pertubaro's Fist, began systematically destroying the supply lines. The third, the Bitter Truth, targeted the command structure, starting with Lord Commander Varkas. "Krellax!" Varkas's scream was both vox and psychic. "What have you done?" "Mathematics," Krellax whispered, blood frothing from his lips. "Simple mathematics, the equation of redemption. 1 traitor's life equals 30,000 innocents. The calculation balances." The Iron Warriors' assault collapsed into chaos. Demon engines killing their own forces, commanders dead or dying, the mathematical precision of their attack destroyed by the very person who had designed it. The Gilded Wardens, seizing the opportunity, counter-attacked with devastating effect. But Krellax was watching something else through his fading tactical display. The last child, the girl who looked like Kyra, emerging from the tunnel 7 kilometers away, still clutching her paper Aquila. Safe.
Captain Valorian found him in the ruins of the Iron Warriors' command post, surrounded by the bodies of traitors who'd tried to stop his sabotage. The Warsmith was dying, truly dying now, his demon heart finally accepting defeat. "The civilians," Krellax's voice was barely a whisper. "Safe. All of them." Something that might have been a smile crossed the traitor's ruined features. "Good. That's good." Valorian knelt beside the dying warrior, confusion and something else, respect in his voice. "You were one of them. You turned on the Emperor. You burned worlds. Why save this one?" Krellax coughed blood that was more machine oil than vitae. Because I remembered something. Before the heresy, before the bitterness, my daughter, she used to build things with me. Small things. Toys. Models. She'd say, "Daddy, we're making something that will last forever." And I believed her. His augmetic eye focused on the paper Aquila, still somehow clutched in his siege claw. We were supposed to be builders, protectors. We were supposed to make things that lasted forever. Instead, we became destroyers. We made nothing but ruins and regrets. The chaplains would say there's no redemption for traitors. They're right.
Krellax's breathing was labored now, systems failing one by one. But there's something else. Something I learned in 10,000 years of damnation. Redemption isn't about being forgiven. It's about choosing to do one right thing, even when every wrong thing you've done is carved into your soul. He pressed the paper aquila into Valorian's hand. Tell them. Tell the children. Sometimes monsters remember how to be men. Sometimes even iron can choose to bend rather than break others. His last words were almost inaudible. Kyra, Daddy built something that lasted. Not forever, but long enough.
The official record states that the shrine world of sanctified hope was saved by a catastrophic malfunction in the traitor force's demon engines, likely caused by warp instability. Lord Commander Varkas and Warsmith Krellax were listed as killed in action, their bodies destroyed in the mechanical failure. But Captain Valorian of the Gilded Wardens filed a secondary report, sealed at Vermilion-level classification, that told a different story. A story of an Iron Warrior who chose to die for the Imperium he'd spent 10 millennia trying to destroy. A story that raised questions the ecclesiarchy could never allow to be asked. Can a traitor be redeemed? Can 10,000 years of damnation be undone by a single act of sacrifice? Can someone who has walked in hell choose to build a single step toward heaven? The Inquisition ordered all evidence destroyed, the paper aquila stained with traitor blood, the tactical data showing the deliberate sabotage, the testimony of 30,000 civilians who swore a space marine in iron and hazard stripes had saved them. But some things cannot be destroyed. In the rebuilt Cathedral of Sanctified Hope, there is a small shrine. Officially, it honors the Gilded Wardens who died in defense of the world. But those who look closely will notice something odd. Among the carved figures of loyalist heroes stands one figure with no face, no name, only an inscription in High Gothic. He remembered how to build. The children who survived that day grew up to become priests, soldiers, administrators. They spread across the Imperium, carrying with them a secret story, a whisper of heresy that sounds like hope, that even in the darkest soul, even in those who have fallen furthest, a single spark of humanity can survive 10,000 years of darkness.
The Iron Warriors still tell a different story. In their bitter halls, Krellax is remembered as the ultimate traitor, a warrior who betrayed his own brothers for the enemy they'd sworn to destroy. His name is a curse, his legacy one of shame. But I have found in archives both imperial and traitor testimony that suggests something else. Iron warriors who hesitate before firing on civilians, sieges that fail due to mechanical errors when children are present, traitor marines who die with strange words on their lips. I remember how to build. Warsmith Krellax proved something that shakes both the Imperium and the Traitor Legions to their foundations. The war for a soul is never truly over. Every moment presents a choice. Every action is a decision to continue down a path or to change direction, no matter how late, no matter how damned. He was a traitor who died loyal, a destroyer who chose to protect, a damned soul who found in his final moments something worth saving besides himself. The Imperium teaches us that heresy is absolute, that those who fall can never rise. The Chaos Gods teach that corruption is eternal, that those who serve can never be free. But Krellax followed neither teaching. In his final equation, he found a third option: to die building rather than live destroying. The lesson is written in the ledger of the lost. Damnation is a choice renewed every moment, but so is redemption. The Iron Warriors claim iron doesn't bend, but Krellax proved that even iron, heated in the forge of 10,000 years of hate, can choose to become something new in its final cooling. Even iron can choose to shelter rather than siege. Even a traitor can remember how to build. Even in the 41st millennium, where there is only war, a single act of mercy can echo louder than 10,000 years of thunder. The calculation is simple. The choice is not.